All right. And just a couple of reminders that we do feel free to put any questions you have for our panelists here today in the chat. And then also just a reminder that those of us that are answering the questions should be the panel members as well. So thank you so much for everybody for being here. And Joy, I'll let you guys take it from here.
Sounds good. Chrisanne, can I have you unmute yourself here for a sec? So my name's Joy Spahn, and I'm one of the volunteers support group facilitators or partners or helpers, however we want to call ourselves. And we meet. We have a number of groups that meet, and the folks that are going to share their experiences and their thoughts with you are from different groups. And so I'm going to kind of help facilitate this meeting as well. And like Ellen said, if you want to put your questions in the chat box, and then I'll be monitoring that, and we'll bring those up as we go along, and hopefully we can answer as many as we can. I understand there's quite a group on the screen here today, so I can't guarantee we can get to everybody's, but I will have them answer your questions. And one of the rules that we have is only the folks living with dementia can answer questions. So even though the audience may have some things that they would like to answer for folks, we are only going to allow the folks that are on the panel to answer those questions. So I will go across the screen and have folks introduce themselves. Tell a little who you are, a little bit about yourself and what your diagnosis is, and whatever other information you would like people to know about you. So Chrisanne, you're the first one on my screen. So I'm going to have you.
Age before beauty. That's what you're doing, isn't it, Joy?
Well, I'm just going from left to right, and you happen to be on the far left. So there you go.
That's great. My name is Chrisanne Lutz-Moss. I am living well with Lewy body dementia. I was diagnosed 5-6 years ago, depending. I'm kind of holding steady. I've had some progression, of course. Lewy body dementia did cost me my marriage. Some people just don't have the tools to handle this, and I understand that. So I live with my daughter and her 2 boys and our 2 dogs, and I have a really full, rich, joyful life.
Chrisanne, you want to say a little bit about what you did before you retired?
Certainly. I have a nursing background and some law school as well. I did, because I'm older, I have done a variety of things in the nursing field. But the last 20 years plus, I worked for a biotech company as a clinical education manager or a thought leader liaison, which means I went around and talked to really smart people and learned things and connected them back to the company for our benefit, to help us develop teaching tools and marketing tools and study opportunities.
All right, thank you, Chrisanne. Scott, you're next on my screen.
I'm next on the hit parade, eh?
You're next on the hit parade.
Again, my name is Scott Guernsey. I live in Western Michigan, probably about 9 miles from Lake Michigan. I have 3 kids, 7 grandkids, and in 2019, I was diagnosed with vascular dementia, and it was relatively mild at that point. But as time goes, you never go positive. You're kind of always going negative. So the thing you got to do is manage it. You got to manage it to keep yourself on top of stuff. I've had to change my lifestyle, which you probably can imagine. My wife, Kyle, is intimately involved with this. She's studied as much as I have on the disease and how to manage the disease and what works and what doesn't work. And then some of this stuff is also trial and error. You figure out some methodology you're going to use to get a problem solved, and you get in the middle of it and you've forgotten all your steps and you don't know what to do, and you throw your hands up in frustration. But what Kyle helps me do is pulls me back into the real world, and we work the problem together. And for me, that's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. I can't be more grateful for Kyle as she continues to go on this journey with me. The As it's going on for me right now, the I guess the message I want to send is that what you got to understand is dementia is not a death sentence. There is lots of life ahead. There's lots of life to be able to take advantage of, and you've got to pace yourself. It's easy to get frustrated and angry and kind of lose control. But on the whole, you got to make sure you're holding yourself together and not letting this thing get you down, destroy you, make you a very, very unhappy person for a long time. So I continue to enjoy what I do. Big Michigan State fan. Yeah. Yeah, that dominates a lot of stuff. All my kids went to Michigan State. All my kids' spouses went to Michigan State, and you're already brainwashing your grandkids. So anyway, um, what I guess the last thing I want to say is don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be afraid to bring it up. Don't be afraid to ask people how to learn about it. You can read all you want to, but and if you want to find what's down and dirty, talk to people that have the disease and are working through it. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. I think that's really good advice, and hopefully we can get back to that about because I'm guessing folks have gotten diagnosis, but they're not quite sure how to talk about that with family and friends and things like that. So hopefully we can get back to that. Before we move on to Gary, again, if you have questions for these folks, this is a big opportunity for you to ask any questions because they'll answer pretty much anything. So please put them in the chat box. You have a great group of folks that have a lot of experience here. So here's your chance to ask questions. So Gary, I'm going to move on to you because you're next on my screen.
I have to correct Chris Ann. I'm older than she is. So anyway, my name
Okay,
is
so
Gary
you're
Schmidt.
pretty, Gary, you're prettier than me, so, anyway, there
Okay.
you go. Move on.
Let's not get carried away here.
My name is Gary Schmidt. I live in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Graduated from the University of Wisconsin in Madison, so a proud Badger rather than a Spartan. Uh, I was a family practice physician for 36 years in a small town right on Lake Michigan called Manitowoc, south of Green Bay. Retired 10 years ago, moved to 11 years ago now, moved to Green Bay. 5 years ago, found that I wasn't able to do some of the things I usually did. I'm forgetting names of persons and places, and was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. Although I felt for sure that I was going to have Lewy body dementia, doctors weren't ready to make that diagnosis until that mouse ran toward me in the garage, rather than away from me. So I've had some hallucinations. Uh, my wife, who is my care partner, I've been married for 50 years now, just a couple of weeks ago. Uh, it's sort of a struggle for both of us to be able to communicate properly, because part of my problem with the disease is I misinterpret what people say, and then react in the wrong direction. Uh, the other thing that happens is sometimes I talk too much, but Chris Ann can relate to that. But mine, I think, was related to maybe the medication I was taking, which was yeah, I'm blanking on it because I'm stopping it. Effexor. Uh, when I started taking Effexor, I started talking to anyone and everyone, and I was an introvert before that. The neurologist I saw now is saying, well, maybe that's too much of a stimulation for you. So I'm in the process of tapering off of it and probably going on to sertraline, but we'll see how that goes. Uh, I've never been afraid to talk about my disease. Uh, my family knows about it. My neighbors know about it. Uh, we don't have a real close neighborhood. It's one of those neighborhoods where people probably lived in this area for a long time, and they have their own cluster of friends and partners and things. And so, but when we moved here 4 years ago, I walked around the neighborhood and when I saw someone I didn't know, I introduced myself and I said, I have Lewy body dementia. And of course, they didn't know what that was. So I got to discuss that with them. And I said, next time I see you, I'm not going to remember your name. So let me know who you are. And I had the pleasure of one neighbor saying, no, I'm not going to tell you that. And I'm going to tell you who I am. I said, you're down here because my lawn needs mowing. So I've talked to them. I've talked to waiters. I've talked to anyone and everyone. And I think that's important to let people know. Janet, my spouse, is a retired nurse, so she knows a lot what's going on. Unfortunately for her, I think there's going to be more work um coming up in the year's future.
Well, I think that's a really good segue into one of our first questions here, and I'm going to go back to Chris Ann. We'll kind of do the round robin here. Or I guess any of you that want to pop up and add to this. The questions is, what's one thing that you would tell a care partner to keep in mind every day?
Um, although I have better days than others, and sometimes within the day, my cognitive ability can change, but I always have Louis. Um, I think when we, look normal, we can act fairly normal, we can do things pretty regularly. It's easy to forget that I still can get confused. I still have, the sensory issues, the noises, the vision changes, the balance issues. One of my biggest problems is that I cannot tolerate heat. I think Gary has that same problem. Um, and crowds and what have you, that even though I look pretty good and whatever, um, I'm not. And I'm not the same person I was. I'm going to enjoy as much as I possibly can. And yes, sometimes I push myself, but it's there underneath. It's an invisible disability. And I have oftentimes said, if I had no legs, would you ask me to walk? And and sometimes I really have to remind them of those types of things. So, and yet I really do choose joy. I really do choose to reframe things and make it good. um, I mentioned earlier that I'd lost my marriage over this disease, and I think that's really common with women. um, And I am so very guilty of this. I was a caregiver. I took care of everything. And all of a sudden, when I couldn't, that was really, really a struggle for others. And I think that's a common, just because of women live longer, Lewy body dementia is more common in men than women. But you oftentimes see women being uh, being more alone, if you will, in this disease. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay, thank you. Um, Scott, I'm gonna ask you the same question about what's one thing that you'd tell a new care partner to keep in mind. And I think in addition to that, it reminded me, Chris Ann, that um, as that journey progresses, there are certain um, how your relationships change with your care partners and some of the expectations that change. So all of you have mentioned things that are become more challenging for you, whether it's noise or heat or whatever. Um, so what kinds of things, I'm going to add on to this a little bit. So what kinds of things should care partners know um, about you and to keep in mind when on your day to day? Like if you're in an area where it's too noisy, what might they expect for you to, how would they know that that's not comfortable for you?
Am I on now?
Did
Mhm. Yep, you're on now, Scott. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Um, I think that I'm fortunate in a way that my wife Kyle is not bashful about uh, yapping at me for doing dumb stuff, and it what's goes on, and it's good, is that she'll correct me at pretty much every circumstance that I tend to go off in the never land. Um, and so we talk a lot during the day, in about trying to um, manage your house, um, manage uh, dealing with the grandkids, managing going to a sporting event. In addition, for me, um, my wife Kyle, understands that I need to get as much exercise as I could during the week. I think getting the heart pumping and into the brain really makes a difference for me. So I swim a lot. I go down to the local pool and swim a couple miles a day. So anyway, um, I'm not know if I'm answering your question, but
Mhm.
um, I it is it is a it's not a straight line uh, disease. You're not going from here to there just as you go. What happens is you hit a plateau and you deal with this, whatever this cognitive plateau you're on, and it could be a couple of months, it could be a year, it could be 6 weeks. And then you drop, you lose the ability to do some of those things that you were doing just last week. And um, the other problem is that a lot of times you don't recognize exactly what's going on with you until you really mess up something. So there's a trial by error thing, and so the having some patience with yourself is there, but also don't just you know don't just let yourself just be a slouch sitting in the corner. You got to challenge yourself a little bit to do some of these things that you've done before and may not be able to do again, and not destroy your own ego, and feel bad about it and have a whole bunch of remorse. um, and so I spend every day doing this to some extent. Some days are easier than others. Some days that if you don't get a good rest the night before, you're ugly about 2 in the afternoon. So it's tiredness wears out on you. So that's kind of what I'd say.
I guess in summary, what I hear so far is that keeping that conversation going with your care partner so that you're communicating whoever that care partner is, whether it's your daughter or whether it's your spouse or a significant other or your neighborhood, like on the video that they were talking about. So having that conversation on an ongoing basis, but also recognizing that your dementia changes, that no 2 days are exactly the same. And so by continuing to have those conversations, that's helpful because then your care partner knows what's going on with you. Would that be would that be accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. I think in
Okay.
addition, what I would say is, it's sometimes it depends on the environment you're in. You know, if you're in your house, you're in your home, and you're comfortable with everything you're doing, you know where
Mhm.
the salt is, and you know where the dishwasher is and stuff like that. And you know how to run those things. Um, that provides a level of consistency. Um, and if you're in a situation where you're very unfamiliar with it, particularly
Mhm.
if you're driving or traveling to a town you've never been in, or you're shopping in some mall that you've never seen before. Um, if you put yourself in a circumstance where you're isolated
Mhm.
and have to make decisions on things, that's pretty tough sometimes. And I think that going through it, you get really frustrated and you get angry. I guess and I don't think that's necessarily uncommon, but what we have to do going forward is to forgive ourselves somewhat somehow, and get back to a more level state. And that's easier said than done.
Thank you, Scott. Gary, I'm gonna throw another question at you, a different one, because we're getting quite a few here, so we want to try and get to a few of them. One of the questions has to do with what kind of communication helps you feel more supported and included. I'm assuming that that means on a day-to-day basis, but also is there a way when people are talking to you or your family that you feel more included so that people aren't talking around you or over you or by you?
Yeah. Um, I tend to blame my disease for a lot of things I do, whether it's a mistake or not being able to hear, not being able to talk loud enough. Uh, and I don't think that's fair to the other person. Uh, communication is, I think, to communicate well with everybody around you, they need to know what you have. If you don't tell them you have a cognitive disorder, you have a dementia, uh, that one, my voice is very quiet, or I may miss the first two words that you say and not understand, or from a real noisy atmosphere that I may not hear at all, and not be able to join the conversation. So I've found it well to, when we go out someplace, to find a place that's not really noisy. If I'm with my family, I really appreciate when they come sit next to you and hold a normal conversation with you. They all know what's going on. They understand that I may call Karen and Julie, which I've done, my daughters. Uh, they understand that I stumble for words a lot, and they don't have to answer for me. Uh, be patient and wait. And I found that to happen in our groups. And one of the benefits of being in our groups is that we all know the problems that we face. We don't have to jump in and answer for each other, because that's that makes you feel unwanted. Um, not being able to have conversations with people makes you feel alone and separated a lot. And I'm going to jump into one of the other questions in the box that helps that, and that's the driving. I don't. I stopped driving 2 years ago on my own. Being a doctor, I had to tell too many people that because the families were afraid to tell them to stop driving. They asked me to do it. I was the bad guy, and that's okay. So when things started blurring, my visuals, I can't track things that are moving fast, and cars move fast.
Mm-hmm.
They blur up on me. So I stopped driving. I drove around the neighborhood for a year. That was about 2 years ago, and for 2 years now, I haven't driven. Um, that's hard. It's hard to give up. It's hard for me to sit in the passenger seat and not give directions, uh, which you should do. Uh, but it keeps you from going out to see other people, like at the hardware store or grocery store. But my spouse is good. Janet is good at trying to get me to do those things and to go out. We go out to eat once a week, and that's important. Um, how do you tell your family about it? For me, it wasn't hard. I just told them outright what I had.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I miscalculated when I first got it. I knew I had Lewy body dementia, and I worked with people with Lewy body dementia in a nursing home, and they were sitting in their rocking chair and were angry, and I knew I was going to become that angry old person. And this was in October, and 5 years ago now. I asked my daughter to go Christmas shopping for my wife for me because I wasn't going to be able to do it the next year. So here we are, 5 years later. I can't drive to go Christmas shopping, so I lean on her to help me sometimes. But uh, that's a hard thing. Um, did I answer your question? I don't know. I wandered
I think
a
so.
little bit.
Nope, I think you did. Because some of the as I'm looking through some of these questions too, many of them are related in terms of how you respond and how you connect with each other and what to do in certain circumstances and things like that. And I think it sounds like from what all of you have said, being honest and upfront with family is important, but also um, how things are changing for you. So one of the questions, for example, and I'll go back to Chris Ann, um, are there things that situations where you found yourself becoming anxious, where anxiety is kicked in a little bit more? And what were some of the things that maybe triggered that, and how do you manage that?
Uh, you know, the anxiety and depression were actually some were my presenting symptoms, or at least part of my presenting symptoms. Please forgive the background noise. And so I thought, gosh, what do I do about that? So I did go on Effexor, and I really like it. I think it's great. But when I'm out and about, and if I start to get anxious, I am a deep breather. I do the box breathing. I figure if it's good enough for the Navy SEALs, it'll be good enough for me too. But that really does help you to calm down. It really does. And I will remove myself, not from the room or from the situation completely, but I'll go to the peripheral and kind of just be more on the outskirts of it. And when I go to a restaurant or any of those types of things, I immediately tell them I have cognitive issues and I need a quiet section, or I'll call ahead and ask for that to happen. And in family situations, I do the very same thing. And I oftentimes will remind them, oh, I'm just having, I'm having a brain thing. I need to be apart, but I need to step away for a little bit. And that seems to help me. Music, I have headphones. Oftentimes I'll put those on, the noise canceling headphones, or I'll put my music on or my book and listen. I'm a big singer and hummer. And so I'll start humming or just, I usually don't sing out loud, but all of those things are self-soothing. And I do, like I mentioned, I take Effexor that helped me greatly. And yes, I became even more talkative. And then at night, I've always been able to hold court, Gary, and you know that. My greatest claim to fame was somebody called me, "You are the Phil Donahue of thought leader liaisons," and all the young people around me went, "Who's that?" And I said, "Oh, right." But anyway, and I had over 100 academic positions I was trying to teach, so it was great. But anyway, I lost my train of thought. I was so busy bragging on myself talking.
No.
At night, I take trazodone for sleep. And it also is an antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication. It's not so good for that, but the great side effect of it is sleep. And it'll help me fall asleep and stay asleep. And when somebody mentioned earlier, getting good sleep is really important. People who have any of the alpha-synucleinopathies in the Lewy or Parkinson family, we have REM sleep disorder. And so oftentimes I don't go into REM sleep till 5 or 6 in the morning. And so it's critical that you get that. If you can get enough sleep, almost all of your symptoms are better.
Yeah, I hear kind of three different key points that you just talked about. One is self-awareness, when that anxiety starts to happen, and being able to recognize that, and that there are things that you can do to help keep that under control a little bit. One is changing your behavior in terms of breathing and that sort of thing. One is using some medication that helps, but also letting other people know so that they know how to better respond to you. Is that accurate?
It is. I would add one more thing. I think there are some people who are more empathic than others. And I will tell you, I have one of my best friends and my son and a few others. They can tell. I mean, they'll look at my eyes, my sister-in-law too, and say, "Mom," or "You're done for the day. We need to step away, Mom." And you know what? Having that is such a gift. Oh, let me tell you. I really appreciate that. And when communicating, and I think with anything, I have learned, I've set up cues. So I mentioned my ex-husband. He's still very much part of my life and a partner in many ways. It's just best we not live together. But I will say, Louis, and he gets it, and so he'll walk away, or at least he'll try. And so I think that's important too, is to make sure you help others to recognize that, if you recognize it yourself. But like I said, when someone else sees it in you, it's truly a gift.
Thank you. Scott or Gary, do you have anything more to add to that? Oh, I see your hands up, Gary, so I guess you do.
Yeah, I do. Uh,
There you go.
I found that letting my family know that noise and things bother me, and that I get to 5 o'clock and I start crashing. Um, we've had 2 graduations, high school graduations in our family this year. And at the last graduation party last week, my son came at his house, came up to me in the middle of the afternoon and said, you know, if you want to go in the house, sit down, be alone, do it. And I do it. They come over for Christmas. We have 8 grandchildren, and they're not calm. They're having fun. They don't see each
It's
other
a little
now.
hectic, does it? A
Yeah, it's
little
noisy.
bit.
So I will go into a room and close the door and stay there. And they understand that. And that's important that we communicate with our families so that they understand. And the grandkids all understand that too. So yeah,
Right.
that's why it was good.
Those are really great points, Gary.
Chris Ann
Thank you.
already commented on that, but yeah.
Yeah, yes, you know
Well,
that.
she's got this thing called the effexor effect. I started effexor, and I started talking, and we call it the effexor effect. And in fact, in one group I was at, they called it Chatty Cathy. So,
Okay, well, I'll do one of these right now, so we can scooch over to Chris Ann, and then I'll do that to Chris Ann when it's time
Oh,
for Garrett, for Scott to have a chance.
yes, and I must tell you, I tell every moderator that please shut me up, cut me off. You know, I think, like we were just saying, part of the problem with the crowds and the anxiety and what have you is that new person, the adaptations that we have to make. But one of the hardest things for me is I'm the Aunt Chrissy, I'm the Mimi who wasn't always sitting around with adults. I was doing slip and slide with the kids. I was in the pool. I was throwing the ball. I can play a mean game of kickball, let me tell you. And even and that's really been hard for me to give up. I do other things with that. Like I say, reframe it, I adapt, and what have you. We read books, we play games, we snuggle, we do other things, but it's all part of living as well as you can with the changes we have. And it's choosing that attitude with whatever situation we're in.
Thank you, Chris Ann. Scott, I'm going to add a little bit more to that whole anxiety thing. I'd like you to maybe respond to it,
Okay.
and Gary or Chris Ann later too. But one of the questions that kind of came in with that was, and I don't know if you've been looking at the chat box, but one person was asking about a spouse of hers, excuse me, that gets a little bit more irritated, and are there any things that they need to know so that they don't make that worse, so they don't throw fuel on the fire, so to speak. Um, are there any thoughts that you have about that to help someone so they don't make situations worse?
I guess I would say that this is a trite phrase, but to be patient with that your significant other, and at the same time, uh, don't just let anything happen. There is a time and a place to say, stop, we're not doing this. And be, I think the most effective way is to, with a very kind and very supportive statement or qualification, and kind of head off, or not head off, but initiate the conversation with something that is um, much, which is softer, which leads to a more, maybe a less confrontational discussion.
Mhm.
And the other thing, no, I wasn't going to say that. Never mind. I was going to say you don't drink, drink a lot, but that's not good either.
Probably not.
No.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. One of the things, did you have something you were going to say, Chrisanne?
Well, I just wanted to add to that, of course. But I have found that naming the feeling is my youngest grandson is on the spectrum, and we name the feeling. You know, Charlie, you seem really frustrated, you seem angry, you know, and that helps, I believe. And then, of course, helping him to reframe it, distract it. There are physical things I have learned to do. Tapping is one of them. There's a certain tapping technique that you can do. And then, but I would say with people with cognitive change, look for a physical reason for the anger. Oftentimes, you know, I have one neurologist friend out of Rush, and she says, it's a urinary tract infection until all else, everything else is, you know, disproven. So look for a physical reason for that. And then distract. Try to find something that they love to do. Tifa Snow, I've watched her in some of her videos, and I just love it. You know, a soft touch, if it's appropriate. Have someone start humming, you know, amazing. But you know, something that they enjoy doing. Open the windows, let some sunshine in, whatever it is, to try to increase that dopamine naturally. Outdoors is always good too.
Absolutely. I know some of the things that have come up in the group that I'm with is some of the stigma that's often associated with that diagnosis. And one of the huge benefits of you folks speaking out is to give people living with dementia a whole different face, because I would dare say that most of the time when people think of someone with dementia, they think of end stage.
Mhm.
And Scott, I think it was you that said there's a whole lot of living that has to take place before somebody gets there.
That's right. And the other part, the other half of that, I mean, the other quarter of that is the early stages of dementia. You know, that's a whole different kind of scenario. And if you're not aware, the the biggest, in effect, piece of that is that getting used to it and living your, you know, with the to adjust that doesn't so bad that you know you want to just give up and throw it away. It is also the fact that you have a consciousness, a conscience. It is active and it's right, and it's, you know, it have to be. It's not a circumstance where you just don't have any capability or capacity to do anything for yourself or eat for yourself, or which is the last stage.
Exactly. And I think, at least from our group and other folks in the Dementia Minds that I've spoken to, is that sometimes, particularly in those early stages, because you know you don't look like you have dementia.
Yeah, right.
Was that
That
what
you know you
the
don't
question
look
we
that
ask is
way.
You don't
how
look like
how
that at the second stage either. You know, it's
how is that person supposed to look?
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Well,
right.
and you know your care partners too, because you don't look like you have a problem. Sometimes it's challenging, um, for them to misinterpret what's going on too, because you know you don't look like you have dementia. So,
Yeah,
um,
I
well, it
think
looks
that's
like
a
we've
whole.
got. Go ahead.
Sorry,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I said I think that's where a lot of that stigma comes from. You know,
Hmm.
it's people's misunderstanding or misrepresentation of what it actually is. They got an image in their mind what it is, and it's not what it is.
Well, I think
And
that is an awesome way to end this session, because I think we've, according to my clock, we've got about 2 minutes. Is that about correct, Ellen?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So, thank you all for being here, and I think, the you have just kind of put to bed that whole notion of what people with dementia look like. And hopefully the folks that have been on the call have a totally different look and feel and understanding of what that's like, and what they can do to change that. So thank you so much for coming forward and sharing your experience and thoughts with us. So I will turn it back over to Ellen.
Thank y'all so much. This was an amazing presentation. So much good information shared, so much insight from y'all. So we can't thank y'all enough. And Scott, Chris, Ann, and Gary, just again, thank you so much. Thank you also, Joy, for guiding us through this conversation. And thanks to everyone that submitted questions and listened in with us today. And I hope everyone has a good rest of their day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Take
everybody.
care.
Bye.